It's been 7 days. For 7 days, the only sound in our apartment has been the hum of the refrigerator and the frantic, useless tapping of my thumb on my phone screen. Benjamin is gone, and I don't mean he packed a bag and is staying at a friend's place to cool off. I mean he has been surgically removed from this life, from my life. His side of the closet is a gaping black hole. All his worn-out band t-shirts, the suit he wore to his sister's wedding, his running shoes gone. The bathroom counter feels unnervingly spacious without his shaving kit, and that electric toothbrush I always complained was too loud. His collection of dog-eared sci-fi paperbacks no longer crowds the bookshelf. It's not like he moved out, it's like he was meticulously erased. My phone is a monument to my own stupidity. Every app, every line of communication is a dead end. His Instagram profile, which I've tried to load at least 500 times, just spins and spins before telling me the user can't be found. His number goes straight to a generic voicemail that isn't even his voice. On WhatsApp, the two checkmarks that used to signal he'd read my frantic apologies have been replaced by a single, damning gray one. He didn't just leave, he built a digital fortress between us, and I'm left screaming at the walls. The worst part is, I know this is my fault, I'm not delusional, but this absolute, silent, devastating finality, it feels disproportionate, like using a nuclear bomb to kill a fly. He was supposed to come back, he always came back. That was the whole point of the game. So what did I do this time? What line did I cross that made him decide to burn the whole world down instead of just surrendering? I call it pushing the reset button. That's the sanitized, almost clinical term I use to describe it to myself, because if I called it what it really was, a cruel, manipulative power trip designed to terrorize the person I claimed to love, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. The ritual was always the same. We'd argue, usually over something trivial that I had magnified into a referendum on our entire relationship. He'd try to talk it out, to use logic and reason, but by then I would already be high on the intoxicating fumes of my own manufactured righteousness. Then I'd push the button. I'd pack a small duffel bag with just enough for a couple of nights. A change of clothes, my laptop, a book I'd never actually read. The bag was always half-packed, a loaded gun in the back of the closet. I'd walk out, usually with a dramatic, cutting final word, and go to one of the anonymous, soul-crushing motels out by the interstate. In the sterile quiet of a room that smelled of bleach and desperation, I'd turn my phone off, severing the connection. The silence was my weapon. For the first few hours, I'd surf the web or watch bad TV, a knot of anxiety and adrenaline tightening in my stomach. A small, sane voice would whisper, "This is insane, Margaret, go home, talk to him." But the louder, wounded part of me, the part that was still a terrified little girl, craved the validation that was coming. I'd picture him at home, pacing the apartment, checking his phone every 30 seconds, his world stopped because mine had. His pain was the proof of my importance. The real sick part, the part I'm ashamed to even admit, was the feeling I got 24 hours later. I'd turn my phone back on and the flood would begin. A dozen missed calls. A string of texts starting with a frustrated "Margaret, this is ridiculous," escalating to a worried "Are you okay? Just tell me you're safe," and finally, inevitably, culminating in a desperate "I'm sorry. Whatever it was, I'm sorry, please just come home." And that's when I'd feel it, a wave of pure, unadulterated power, victory. It was a disgusting, addictive drug. In that moment, seeing his panic laid bare, I felt secure. He couldn't live without me. He would do anything to get me back. It was the only way I could quiet the terrified little girl inside me, the one who still remembers standing at the window, watching my father's car drive away for the last time. He never came back. I learned a lesson that day. If someone is going to leave, make sure you're the one who leaves first. Make them beg for your return, that way you're in control. This time, I was the one who decided when the silence ended. I knew it was toxic. I knew it was hurting him, but I couldn't stop. It was the only way I knew how to feel safe. The last fight wasn't even a fight. It was a disagreement, a scheduling conflict so mundane it's embarrassing to even think about now. It was about whose parents we would visit for Sunday dinner. My parents live an hour north, his an hour south. It was his family's turn, according to the loose, unspoken calendar we kept in our heads. But I'd had a hellish week at work, a project had blown up in my face, and I felt fragile, raw, and in desperate need of the uncomplicated comfort of my childhood home. I presented my case not as a request but as a decree. We're going to my parents this weekend, I need it. Benjamin, who was chopping vegetables for dinner, didn't even turn around. "Hey, I get you've had a tough week, but we promised my mom. Remember, it's her birthday dinner, we can go see your folks next weekend." He was right, he was being perfectly reasonable. And that's what made me so angry. His calm logic felt like a dismissal of my emotional chaos. I didn't want reason, I wanted capitulation. I wanted him to see my psychic pain and immediately agree that it trumped all prior commitments. So my stress doesn't matter. Your mom's birthday dinner is more important than your girlfriend being on the verge of a breakdown. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them, dripping with a victimhood I'd summoned out of thin air. He finally turned around, knife in hand, a look of weary recognition on his face. Margaret, don't do this, don't turn it into this. Of course your stress matters, we can talk about it. But we can't just blow off my mother's 60th birthday. He took a step towards me, his voice softening. We can talk, please just don't do the thing. Don't do the thing. That one phrase was like gasoline on a fire. He was predicting my move. He was trying to manage me to preempt my well-worn strategy. All I heard was, I know your playbook and I'm not going to let you run it. My need to prove him wrong, to show him he couldn't control me, surged through my veins. It was a purely reflexive act of self-sabotage. I need some space, I said, my voice cold and distant. I need to breathe away from all of this. I gestured vaguely at him, at the kitchen, at our life. I grabbed the pre-packed duffel bag from the closet, the loaded gun, and walked to the door. I didn't even look back as I slammed it shut behind me, the sharp crack echoing my own shattered sense of control. I checked into the Starlight Inn, a place whose name was far more glamorous than its reality. The room smelled faintly of stale cigarettes and regret, the patterned carpet a tapestry of questionable stains. I went through the motions like a pilot running a pre-flight checklist, a grim automaton. Unpack the few items I'd brought, turn on the TV to a channel I would never watch, the canned laughter of a sitcom feeling obscene in my self-imposed misery. And then the most crucial step, power down my phone. The screen went black and my exile began, but this time it felt different. The usual giddy rush of adrenaline, that high of righteous indignation, was completely absent. In its place was a dull, throbbing unease that settled deep in my gut. I tried to convince myself it was just the lingering stress from work. I told myself that by morning, the familiar cocktail of power and relief would kick in when I saw his barrage of texts. He just needs to stew a little longer this time, I reasoned, pacing the narrow space between the bed and the wall. He needs to really learn his lesson about trying to manage me. The first 24 hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. I ordered a greasy pizza I barely touched and watched the ceiling for hours, tracing the water stains and imagining they were maps of my own bad decisions. Every creak in the hallway, every car door slamming in the parking lot made my heart leap, thinking for a wild, irrational second that he had somehow tracked me down, that he was about to knock on the door, broken and apologetic. The silence in the room wasn't the powerful, weaponized silence I was used to. It was empty, hollow. It pressed in on me, amplifying the sound of my own ragged breathing. It felt less like a strategic maneuver and more like a punishment I was inflicting on myself. On the second day, the anxiety started to curdle into genuine fear. I held my phone in my hand for most of the afternoon, the smooth, dark screen feeling like a dead thing, a portal to a world I had voluntarily cut myself off from. My thumb hovered over the power button, trembling slightly. Just a little longer, the stubborn, proud part of my brain screamed, "Don't you dare fold first. He's just playing your game back at you. He's trying to outweight you. Show him you can take it." That thought that this was a contest of wills was the only thing that kept me from turning it on. But I was losing. The victory I was so desperate for no longer felt worth the agonizing uncertainty. The nights were the worst. Lying in that lumpy, unfamiliar bed, the loneliness was a physical presence in the room. It was a cold, heavy weight on my chest, the same suffocating feeling I remembered from childhood nights after my dad left, when the house felt too big and too quiet. For the first time, the silence I had engineered wasn't making me feel powerful. It was making me feel exactly how I did back then, small, terrified, and utterly alone. I was no longer in control of the silence was in control of me. After 72 hours, I broke. The pride, the stubbornness, the need to win, it all evaporated, replaced by a primal, clawing panic. I couldn't take another second of the crushing silence. My hands were shaking as I finally held down the power button on my phone. The screen flickered to life, and I held my breath, bracing for the usual deluge of notifications. Nothing, the screen was utterly, terrifyingly blank, no missed call alerts, no banner of apologetic text messages, not a single notification from any app. It was as if the world had forgotten I existed for the past 3 days. I frantically checked my signal. Full bars, I opened my messages, my call log, nothing from him, it was a digital void. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't part of the script. He had never, ever let it go this long. A cold dread, far worse than the loneliness, began to seep into my bones. I dialed his number, my thumb slipping on the screen. It rang once, then a click. A recorded voice, sterile and impersonal, informed me, "The number you have dialed is not reachable." Not reachable. I tried again, same result. A wave of nausea washed over me. I opened WhatsApp, his profile picture staring back at me, a happy photo of us from a vacation last summer. I typed, "Benjamin, I'm so sorry, this is stupid, please call me." I hit send, one gray checkmark, delivered, not read. I tried to call him through the app. The call wouldn't even connect, it just failed instantly. He had blocked me. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. He hadn't just been waiting me out, he had cut the cord. The panic turned into pure animalistic terror. I threw my things into my bags, not even bothering to fold them, and fumbled with the key card at the motel room door. I ran to my car and peeled out of the parking lot, the tires screeching in protest. The entire drive home was a blur of frantic, one-sided conversations, me pleading with an imaginary Benjamin in the passenger seat, rehearsing the most profound, life-altering apology the world had ever known. I was going to fix this, I had to. When I finally screeched to a halt in our parking spot, I sprinted to the door, my key already in hand. I remember thinking, he's just trying to scare me. He's packed a bag, he's at his friend's, he just wants to give me a taste of my own medicine. I shoved the key in the lock, turned it, and pushed the door open, a desperate, pathetic "I'm home" already forming on my lips. And then I saw it, the emptiness. The void where his life used to be. It wasn't a taste of my own medicine. It was an amputation. It took me 2 days of nonstop, humiliating begging through our mutual friend Olivia to get him to agree to see me. She acted as the reluctant go-between, her voice strained with a pity I couldn't stand. The meeting was on his terms, a neutral location, a sterile coffee shop downtown during his lunch break. A time limit, I got there 15 minutes early, my stomach churning with a mixture of hope and dread. When he walked in, my breath caught in my throat. He looked fine. Tired, yes, with dark circles under his eyes, but he was composed. He wasn't the shattered, desperate man I was used to seeing after one of my episodes. He was just a man who looked profoundly weary. He sat down and didn't order anything. The silence stretched for an eternity before I finally choked out a pathetic, "Ben, I am so, so sorry." He just nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on a point just over my shoulder. "I know you are, Margaret, you always are eventually." His calmness was more terrifying than any anger could have been. It was the calm of a decision already made. "I can't do it anymore," he said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I can't live my life waiting for the next time you decide to push the reset button. I can't exist in a state of constant anxiety, wondering which minor disagreement is going to cause you to vanish from my life for 3 days." He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes broke me. It wasn't hatred, it was something far worse, detachment. "My dad lived like that," he continued, his voice barely a whisper. "My mom, she did the same thing, she'd leave, disappear. We'd spend days calling hospitals, calling the police, thinking she was dead in a ditch somewhere. Then she'd just show up, acting like nothing happened, and he'd be so relieved she was alive that he'd forgive her. Over and over, I spent my entire childhood watching him get hollowed out by it. I swore to myself I would never, ever let that be my life." He stood up. "I realized I was more afraid of you leaving than I was happy when you were here. That's not love, Margaret, that's being held hostage." And with that, he turned and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving me sitting there completely shattered. The truth of his words was a physical weight crushing me. Later that night, desperate for some kind of validation, I called Olivia, sobbing the whole story to her. I expected her to comfort me, to tell me he was being too harsh. Instead, there was a long pause on the other end of the line, then she just sighed. "Honestly, Margaret," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "what did you expect? You spent years handing him a knife and daring him to use it. Now that he finally has, you're shocked that it hurts." Back in the apartment, my apartment now, the emptiness was an active presence. It had teeth. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost, my hand instinctively reaching for things that were no longer there. His coffee mug on the counter, his jacket slung over the chair. The silence was no longer a weapon, it was the entire landscape of my life. A week after he left, I found the courage to tackle the last bastion of our shared life. The home office. We both used the desktop computer, and I needed to sort through files for work. My heart pounded as I logged in, seeing his user profile icon next to mine. I clicked on mine, unable to bring myself to delete his just yet. While searching for a document, I stumbled across a folder on the shared drive I'd never seen before. It was innocuously named Future. My curiosity, morbid and self-destructive, got the better of me. I clicked it. Inside were just a few files. A link to a local real estate agent's website with several suburban houses bookmarked, a spreadsheet file named Mortgage Budget Draft, and a screenshot from a jewelry website. It was a simple, elegant engagement ring, a design I had pointed out in a magazine months ago and then completely forgotten about. The file's creation date was 3 days before our last fight. He wasn't just staying, he was building. While I was nurturing my grievances and keeping my escape bag packed, he was quietly, seriously planning a life for us. A real, permanent life, with a mortgage and a commitment and a future that stretched out beyond the next argument. He was looking at houses while I was looking at motels. The air rushed out of my lungs. It was a singular, devastating moment of clarity. This is what I had destroyed, not just a relationship, but a future. A whole, tangible world he was trying to build for us, a world I was too busy winning battles to even notice. The screen blurred as tears streamed down my face, the weight of what I had thrown away finally, truly crushing me. A few weeks have passed since then. The gaping wounds of his absence have settled into a dull, chronic ache. Yesterday, I noticed he had unblocked me. My heart did a stupid, hopeful flip, a pathetic muscle memory of a time when that would have meant reconciliation was imminent. But there was no text, no call. Just the lifting of a digital barrier. It wasn't an invitation. It was a statement. You no longer have the power to affect me, so your existence in my contacts list is irrelevant. My life has shrunk to the four walls of this apartment and the glowing screen of my phone. I don't go out much. Sleep is sporadic, punctuated by nightmares where I'm screaming his name in an empty house. My only real activity, the ritual that marks the passing of my days, is stalking his social media. He hasn't posted anything dramatic. There's no new girlfriend, no triumphant better off without her declarations. It's worse, it's just life. A photo of him and his friends on a hike, smiling against a backdrop of mountains. A picture of a loaf of sourdough bread he baked, looking perfectly golden. A group shot from a coworker's birthday party. Every mundane post is a fresh stab of agony. They are all pieces of evidence in the case against me, proof that his world did not stop turning when mine did. He is hiking and I am hyperventilating. He is baking bread and I am forgetting to eat. He is celebrating with friends and I am sitting in the dark. The silence in this apartment is deafening, but the silence on his feed, the silence where I used to be, is so much louder. Here I am right now in the dark. The only light is the bluish glow of my phone on my face. My thumb hovers over his profile picture. It's an endless, self-perpetuating cycle of pain. I know it's pathetic, I know it's a prison of my own making, but I can't stop. I refresh the page again and again and again, praying for something, anything, to change, knowing full well that it never will.